Hello and welcome back to We Talk Boxing. And today I will be doing a pre-fight analysis as well as giving you my thoughts and predictions of this weekend's fight between Saul Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin this Saturday. You know what I mean? It will be the third fight between both guys, you know what I mean? But this time the fight is going to be at 168 pounds. And this is the first time, you know what I mean, that Triple G is going to be fighting at this weight in his career. So before we continue with this video, as always, you know what I mean, please subscribe, like, comment and share for more boxing related content. So this fight between Canelo and Triple G, you know what I mean, we'll see both guys, you know what I mean, stepping into the ring with excellent boxing records. You know what I mean, Triple G, you know what I mean, his current boxing record stands at 42 wins in 44 fights, with one draw and one loss on his name, you know what I mean, which both of these were suffered by Canelo Alvarez back in 2017 and 2018. Triple G, you know what I mean, he's got 37, you know what I mean, KOs out of those 42 wins as well. You know what I mean? And he's currently, you know what I mean, on a 4-fight winning spree, you know what I mean, since losing to Canelo back in 2018. Whereas, you know what I mean, Canelo, his current boxing record stands at 57 wins in 61 fights, with 39 KOs to his name. Canelo also has, you know what I mean, 2 losses and 2 draws to his name. However, in his last fight, you know what I mean, he lost, which was a unanimous decision loss to Dimitri Bivol, you know what I mean, which was at 175 pounds, and that was back in May this year. So the physical stats, you know what I mean, reveal that Triple G is the older man by nearly 8 years, and he also has a height advantage, you know what I mean, of 2.5 inches compared to Canelo. Obviously, the reach as well, you know what I mean, sees both guys nearly similar, you know what I mean, in terms of reach. But Canelo slightly edges this, you know what I mean, by half an inch, you know what I mean. So he's got that slight advantage, but not much really when you're kind of considering. But the stats, you know what I mean, has Triple G down as being the bigger puncher with 84% KO rate compared to Canelo, you know what I mean, who has a 64% KO rate. Now, both boxers, you know what I mean, are highly ranked in their respective divisions. You know what I mean? Canelo, you know what I mean, is currently ranked the top boxer at 168 pounds. You know what I mean? Where he's currently, you know what I mean, the WBO, IBF, WBA, and WBC, as well as ring champion, you know what I mean, in 168 pounds. And he also holds, you know what I mean, a WBC franchise belt at 160 pounds as well. Whilst Triple G, you know what I mean, he's currently ranked, you know what I mean, number 2, you know what I mean, in the WBO 168-pound division. And I suggest that ranking, you know what I mean, is mainly just to, you know what I mean, allow him, you know what I mean, to kind of face Canelo at 168 pounds, because he's not ranked in any of the other governing bodies at 168. This is it really. So I think it's just, you know what I mean, the WBO pushing him forward to say, oh, you know what I mean, he is ranked in one of their divisions, so he does deserve this sort of opportunity. But you know what I mean, realistically, you know what I mean, Triple G mainly, you know what I mean, competes at 160 pounds, and he's currently ranked, you know what I mean, number 1, you know what I mean, in the Ring magazine, and he currently holds as well the IBF and WBA belts, you know what I mean, at 160 pounds, you know what I mean. So yeah, he's got a couple of the titles there, you know what I mean. Now, the caliber, you know what I mean, of opposition both men have faced so far in their careers to date, you know what I mean, has been excellent, to be fair. You know what I mean, it's been of the highest caliber, and I can't really scrutinise it because both men, you know what I mean, have fought and faced the best of the best. Do you know what I mean? And Canelo, you know what I mean, pretty much proved this in his last bout, you know what I mean, by taking on a naturally bigger man, you know what I mean, and fighting him at his weight, you know what I mean, obviously with strict rehydration, clauses and stuff like that. But you know what I mean, what could I say really? You know what I mean? He did that rehydration clause to not allow his opponent, you know what I mean, to put on too much weight after the weigh-in, you know what I mean. But honestly, my thoughts, you know what I mean, is that Canelo kind of held his own in that fight. Do you know what I mean? And he mainly lost the fight because he got outboxed and outworked, sorry, you know, during most of the rounds. However, you know what I mean, I did feel as if, you know what I mean, that the bigger punches, you know what I mean, and the bigger puncher was Canelo. Do you know what I mean? And with a little bit more work rate, do you know what I mean? And maybe punch combination selection, he maybe would have troubled, you know what I mean, Bivol a little bit more and potentially would have beat him. Do you know what I mean? And I honestly would have him down as being a favourite in the rematch because I feel as if he's got the skills and the brain and the tenacity, etc., to make those changes in the rematch as well. But that's another talk for another day. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, both guys have faced some good opposition in their career today. Now, both guys, you know what I mean, they've shared the ring twice before. You know what I mean? With both fights being very, very, very close. You know what I mean? And hard for the judges, and spectators to kind of split at times. You know what I mean? And even today, you know what I mean, speaking to quite a lot of my boxing friends who are, you know what I mean, are really into their boxing and stuff, and you bring up the subject between Canelo and Triple G and stuff, and said, oh, who won the first, who won the second fight, etc., etc. You know what I mean? People would say different things, you know what I mean? Some people would say that Canelo won the first fight, but other people would say that Triple G won it. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe that a draw was sufficient, which it was, you know what I mean? And vice versa for the second fight as well. So to me, you know what I mean? Both fights were just very, very close, and both guys are kind of matched with, you know what I mean, the skills and, you know what I mean, the durability to see them, you know what I mean, go up head to head against each other as well. Do you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? Now for me, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? This fight, if you know what I mean, how I see it kind of going is that I feel as if it's going to be determined by who wins the earlier rounds in this fight. Do you know what I mean? And I believe this is going to be crucial because the person who who wins, you know what I mean, the earlier rounds would have a potential good substantial of rounds behind them, you know what I mean, in terms of scoring and stuff like that, which for me means that in the latter part of the fight, you know what I mean, when it really matters, do you know what I mean, they haven't really got to go chasing the fight, you know what I mean, all they have to do is stay active with their opponent, you know what I mean, and not get knocked down and, you know what I mean, look fairly busy and, you know what I mean, they potentially will, you know what I mean, get the decision, do you know what I mean, on the night. So for me, yeah, the early rounds in this third fight are going to be very, very crucial. Do you know what I mean? But both, you know what I mean, previous fights have shown, you know what I mean, that Canelo normally starts very well in fights. Do you know what I mean? And picks up quite a few of the earlier rounds. You know what I mean? But you know what I mean, towards the end of the rounds, you know what I mean, in both fights, you know what I mean, he drops his workload really. You know what I mean? And this allows his opponents, you know what I mean, or his opponent on that night, those two fights, Triple G, you know what I mean, to get back in to the fights, do you know what I mean? And make the fights a lot closer. Do you know what I mean? And Triple G does the exact opposite to what Canelo does. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean, he starts well you know what I mean, in the previous two fights and stuff, but you know what I mean. For me, I'd probably say that you know what I mean. He came into the fight in the second half of both fights. You know what I mean. So he's a good finisher. You know what I mean? And that durability as well comes in handy for him, really. So, you know what I mean? The interesting thing, you know what I mean, about this fight is that both guys are currently, you know what I mean, about two different places in their careers, you know what I mean, to date, you know what I mean? Just let me explain, you know what I mean? Like, if you think about it, Canelo, you know what I mean, he's still looking for greatness in his career. Do you know what I mean? By trying to challenge the best and trying to you know what I mean, to challenge a lot of the boxers in the heavier weight divisions, you know what I mean, to try and beat them and, you know what I mean, to take their titles and, you know what I mean, to create legacy and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? He isn't really interested in, you know what I mean, fighting, you know what I mean, for titles at his weight or, you know what I mean, fighting against opponents in his weight categories because he knows he's kind of like the best, not being big-headed and that, but he doesn't really see that as much of a challenge. And that's why he is always seeking, you know what I mean, for the best in the bigger and heavier weight divisions, which he did with Bivol. You know what I mean? Whereas, you know what I mean, Triple G, on the other hand, you know what I mean, I'd say that is more towards the end of his career now, you know what I mean? And this fight, you know what I mean, is mainly him, you know what I mean? It's kind of like her last hooray, really, you know what I mean? He wants that revenge over Canelo, you know what I mean, by beating him and, you know what I mean, proving to everyone that he did win one of the first two fights, do you know what I mean? And I honestly feel as if when potentially loses or draws, you know what I mean, this could be it for him. Do you know what I mean? Because he's had quite a tough career, even though he looks quite good for his age. You know what I mean? He is 40 and now he looks quite good and he's quite fit and durable and stuff. But there's only so long a boxer could continue for before he loses that durability and he loses to people that he would never have lost to. Do you know what I mean? So for me, I feel as if Triple G wins this, you know what I mean? I think that could be it for him. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if he would go in there for a fourth time, you know what I mean, against the Canelo. Be interesting, really. You guys obviously will let me know in the comments if you think that could potentially happen, like, you know what I mean? Now, when, you know what I mean, looking at their records and stuff recently, you know what I mean, like, you can see, obviously, Triple G, you know what I mean, he's coming off a good win in his last bout, which was against Murata, you know what I mean, who was considered by most in the 160-pound division to be a very, very, very dangerous opponent, you know what I mean, and Canelo Triple G faced him, you know what I mean, and beat him and KO'd him in 9 rounds, do you know what I mean? Although, at times, it was a little bit trickier for, you know what I mean, Triple G, and he did take some big punches in that fight. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, even though he won and it was a good win on his record and stuff, you know what I mean, it was a hard night's work really. You know what I mean? And also, you know what I mean, as previously mentioned, you know what I mean, earlier and stuff, you know what I mean, Canelo is coming off a loss in his last fight. Do you know what I mean? Meaning that potentially, you know what I mean, Canelo, you know what I mean, he's going to be a little bit more cautious in this fight because he knows that he needs to win this fight. Do you know what I mean? And I honestly could see him potentially starting the fight, you know what I mean, working a lot harder in the earlier rounds and trying to maintain that high work rate throughout the whole of the fight, you know what I mean? Not just, you know what I mean, start fast early and then drop off and stuff. I think he's going to try and keep that high workload throughout the whole of the fight. But if I have to give a prediction, which I will, do you know what I mean? I'm going to predict that, you know what I mean, Canelo wins this on points. Do you know what I mean? Or potentially we could see another draw here. Do you know what I mean? Depending if Canelo drops his workload. But that's my prediction, you know what I mean? I reckon it's going to be Canelo points or, you know what I mean, a draw. But anyway, you guys let me know, you know what I mean, your thoughts about this matchup. Do you know what I mean? How do you see it playing out? Who do you think wins? And by what method? Do you know what I mean? Stoppage, KO, points. Do you know what I mean? And do you think Canelo, you know what I mean, is going to cave under the pressure this time? Or do you feel that, you know what I mean, Triple G, you know what I mean, is far too old to cause Canelo trouble? But anyway, as always, you know what I mean, please like, subscribe, comment, and share for more boxing related content. Bless.